Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Global English Podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Taylor.
We are so excited to dive into a topic today that I think hits every single one of our listeners right where it hurts. You know that moment? You've put in the time, you've mastered the grammar app, your vocabulary list is like miles long. You are functionally an intermediate or even an advanced English speaker.
Right. On paper, you've got it all.
Exactly. But when you try to speak quickly in a real-time conversation, maybe a job interview or with a group of fast-talking native speakers, your entire system just locks up.
It's the absolute worst feeling, that sudden, deafening internal silence when your brain just refuses to retrieve the word you know is there.
Yes.
We actually read a perfect description of this from one learner who said they felt as if they had, and I'm quoting here, a potato stuck inside their mouth.
The potato, it's such a hilarious image, but
Thanks,
it's
kid.
so incredibly accurate. You feel that wave of anxiety just rising, you start to stammer, and then the perfect articulate response you had in your head, it comes out way too late.
Or it's just garbled by the stress.
Right. And the moment for contribution it's past. It's truly frustrating, especially because this isn't a knowledge problem, it's a performance anxiety thing.
And that is exactly why we are dedicating this entire deep dive to this crucial bottleneck. Today, we're going far beyond the simple advice like, just practice more. We are focusing on rewiring your brain for true, spontaneous fluency. This involves making some massive mindset shifts, understanding the physical effects of anxiety, and maybe most importantly, mastering the language tricks that native speakers use automatically to buy time.
And here's where we give you a little peek behind the curtain straight from the research. We've been looking at this fascinating academic study that analyzed high-level English speakers.
Yeah, specifically those scoring band 8 or 9 on the IELTS test, so these are near native speakers.
And the critical surprising fact is that they don't necessarily eliminate hesitation. They just use, like, a different type of hesitation, a smarter type.
We found that those high scores rarely use long, disruptive, silent pauses. Instead, they strategically use what the researchers call small words.
Small words, okay.
And we're going to reveal which 3 specific little small words you can start using right now that will instantly make you sound more fluent, more confident, and less like you're searching.
So these small words act like little signposts in the conversation, allowing you to keep the floor and signal to the listener like, hey, I'm still thinking, wait for me.
Exactly. Stick around till the very end because we've distilled the 4 most important vocabulary and concepts into a quick pop quiz to test you on what you've learned today.
Okay, before we jump into phase 1, the most critical mental shift you can make right now, please take a quick second to subscribe to Global English Podcast if you haven't already. And please hit that like button on this episode. It genuinely helps us beat the algorithms and ensures we reach more learners struggling with that potato feeling.
Okay, let's get into this.
So we often think that fluency is this, pure technical skill, right?
Like it's a numbers game.
Yeah. Know 10,000 words, master all 12 tenses, and then poof, the fluency fairy visits. But the sources we reviewed argue really strongly that fluency starts fundamentally with your mindset.
That's the foundational premise.
Yeah.
The technical skill is necessary, but it's not enough.
Not sufficient.
Right. If you approach every conversation feeling like you're not good enough, the technical skills you have simply can't come out. The concept we saw again and again was the need to adopt a fluent identity.
The fluent identity. I love the sound of that, but let me, play the skeptic a bit for our listeners.
Go for it.
Let's say I'm B1. I still mix up my present perfect and simple past. Isn't telling myself I am a fluent speaker just, lying to myself? How does that actually work without feeling fake?
That is an excellent, necessary challenge. It's not about pretending you're perfect overnight. It's about managing your internal monologue, your self-talk.
Okay.
If your internal monologue is, my English isn't good, I'm going to make a mistake, your anxiety spikes, and you literally inhibit the part of your brain needed for speech. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Ah, so you create the reality you're afraid of.
Exactly. So it's not, I am perfect, it's, I am capable. You adopt the identity of a confident English speaker who is currently in the process of improving.
I like that. In the process of improving.
That shift takes the overwhelming pressure off perfection and puts the focus back on the real goal, flow and communication.
So the advice is to create a daily affirmation.
Yeah, something starting with, I am becoming, or just simply claiming that fluent identity now. When you catch yourself thinking negatively, You have to interrupt that thought, replace it.
That makes perfect sense. By shifting your identity, you start building habits to match the person you believe you're becoming.
Which leads seamlessly into key tip 2, thinking in English, not translation.
Ah, the classic advice.
The classic tough advice. Every learner hears it. Stop translating. But when the pressure is on, that translation reflex is just so strong. Why is it so bad for spontaneity?
Because your brain is doing a triple jump every time you speak.
A triple jump. I love that.
You hear English, convert it to your native language, formulate the perfect response in that language, and then translate that whole complex thought back into English.
And by then, the conversation has moved on.
Exactly. Think of the latency in that process. You have 2 extra processing steps, translation in and translation out, which adds crucial seconds. In a fast conversation, those seconds mean you lose your turn.
And that reinforces the feeling of being slow.
But I can't just turn off my native language, so how do B1 learners even begin to think in English without it feeling like this huge, impossible task?
The key is to start small and functional. Don't try to, have an internal debate about politics in English.
Right.
Start with the simplest short phrases that form your immediate internal monologue. The stuff you think about all day. Things like, I'm tired, or where's my phone, or I need coffee.
Ah, the little things, the immediate necessities of life.
These are the simple thoughts that happen dozens of times a day.
I love that practical entry point. So it's about the volume of small repetitions, not the complexity of the thoughts.
Exactly. So the actionable practice we recommend is simple. Write down 5 short, immediate, functional thoughts, things you think constantly, and commit to only thinking them in English this week.
Okay, so if I'm always checking the time, my 5 might be, I'm late, what time is it? It's too early, 5 more minutes, and time to go.
Perfect. Simple but constant. Repetition of those simple structures builds the muscle memory for your brain. It creates automaticity.
Automaticity.
And that brings us to key tip 3, repetition and rhythm. This isn't just about repeating vocabulary. It's about recognizing that fluent English is musical. It has a specific rhythm and stress pattern.
We definitely don't stress every word equally, right? Sometimes when you listen to a B1 speaker, they stress every single syllable, and it sounds kind of robotic.
That's it, exactly. Native speakers glide over certain words like articles, prepositions, and they emphasize the content words like nouns and main verbs.
So repeating short phrases helps the brain, internalize these patterns.
Precisely. It's like learning a song's melody. If you repeat the phrase, 10 times, focusing on the stressed no, the correct rhythm becomes automatic.
Wait, that concept of moving something from conscious knowledge to automatic behavior, that's exactly what internalize means, right?
It is.
I hear it all the time, but I don't think I ever really grasped the feeling of it. What does it actually mean to internalize a pattern or a rule?
That's a fantastic question, and it's a non-negotiable concept if you want fluency. This is a perfect moment to stop and unpack, internalize.
Let's do.
In plain English, to internalize something means to make it a deep, natural, and automatic part of your thought process or your behavior. It's when a piece of knowledge moves from the front of your brain, where you have to consciously think about it, to the back of your brain, where it just happens without any effort.
So it's like a computer program moving from manual input to running automatically in the background.
Perfect analogy. The goal for a learner isn't just memorizing the past tense rules. It's practicing them so much that the correct form for an irregular verb like go just pops out as went.
Without me having to pause and think, wait, is it go?
Exactly. When you first learn a grammar rule, you have to consciously apply it. When you internalize it, the rule applies itself. It becomes motor memory.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's illustrate this with 3 distinct examples. First, a formal usage, often related to training or procedures.
Okay.
The nuclear power plant trainee must internalize all emergency safety procedures before being permitted to work alone.
Wow. So in that case, it means the actions have to be second nature. They have to be done automatically and correctly under extreme stress.
Exactly. No time to think. Next, a more casual example related to culture or media. I listen to that new pop song so much in the car that I've completely internalized the lyrics, even the parts I don't like.
I've definitely done that. You absorb them through just hearing them over and over until you can't not sing along.
Your recall is automatic. And finally, a funny scenario that shows the unintended consequences of internalization.
Okay.
After spending a week visiting a quiet rural village, I started to internalize their habit of speaking extremely slowly and pausing mid-sentence for dramatic effect.
I would love to have that accidental dramatic pause habit internalized. That's great. Okay, let's try a quick scenario role play using this concept. Maybe learning a physical skill, like a complicated dance move.
Sounds perfect. I'm struggling with this complicated triple spin move in my salsa class. I keep messing up the footwork.
Great, you keep having to look down at your feet and count the steps. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, exactly.
That tells me you haven't truly internalized the coordination yet. You're still relying on conscious instruction.
You're absolutely right. I'm thinking way too much about the mechanics instead of letting the movement flow with the music. I need to practice the sequence of steps and turns maybe 100 more times until the timing is completely internalized.
And once you internalize the steps, you can stop focusing on your feet and start focusing on your partner and the music.
The communication and the flow.
Which is the perfect parallel with language. Once you internalize the structure, you can focus 100% on the message.
Exactly. To wrap up this important word, let's talk about common word pairings or collocations.
Good idea.
You often hear people say, internalize knowledge, which is making information truly yours. You internalize habits making a new routine stick automatically. And, most relevant here, you internalize cultural norms.
What does that one mean?
It means you start following unwritten social rules, like when to make eye contact or how close to stand to someone, without consciously realizing you're doing it.
Got it. So phase 1 is all about the big picture. Stop thinking about English rules and start internalizing the whole English system.
If you can achieve that, the anxiety about performance should theoretically drop.
Precisely. And that takes us straight to phase 2. Recognizing how anxiety locks us into this failure loop.
Right.
We mentioned that so much of what locks up our speaking, that potato in the mouth, is pure fear. Fear of judgment, fear of mistakes.
Yeah.
That Reddit post we found where a highly proficient writer became completely mute and anxious during a simple video call. It just shows how powerful this fear is.
That learner articulated the core problem so well. Competence doesn't eliminate performance anxiety.
Not at all.
The anxiety leads to mistakes, and the mistakes only fuel the belief that they are stupid or bad at English. This creates the self-perpetuating problem our source material called a vicious circle.
The anxiety problem is huge. It's defined by low self-confidence and that paralyzing fear of failure.
And the cruel mechanism of this circle is that the more anxious you are, the more your brain hinders smooth retrieval of words.
Which leads to more mistake.
Which in turn increases the anxiety for the next attempt. It just feeds itself.
And we have to be clear, this isn't just a psychological thing, right? It's physical.
Absolutely. Our sources explain that anxiety has a physical neurological impact. It triggers the body's primitive fight or flight response.
Okay.
When your body detects danger, even social danger, it doesn't prioritize complex, higher-order functions like language.
Right, it's focused on survival.
It floods your system with cortisol, your muscles might tighten, and your mind literally goes blank, or you start stammering.
So if I feel anxious, my body is physically preventing me from using the past perfect tense because it thinks I need to run away from a bear.
That's a powerful and accurate way to put it. It's self-sabotage by biology.
Wow.
The academic review from Ciencia Latina gave us a deep dive into the specific factors that cause this anxiety, especially in classrooms, but they translate perfectly to the real world.
Okay, let's break those down for the listeners. They can maybe identify their own triggers. What did the research find?
They found 4 major triggers. First, and this one's pretty obvious, is the fear of mistakes and the resulting ridicule or loss of face.
Yeah, nobody wants to look stupid.
Right. This is a huge motivator for just avoiding speaking practice entirely. Second, low self-esteem and confidence.
Yeah.
And this ties directly back to not having that positive, fluent identity we talked about.
So it's not just about what other people think, it's about what the mistake confirms to yourself.
Exactly. Third, they isolated specific environmental pressures. One was pressure from peers, and another, crucially, was on-the-spot correction by teachers.
Oh, that's a big one.
A huge one. If you are mid-sentence, trying to maintain flow, and a teacher interrupts you to fix a minor grammatical error, that moment validates your fear of failure. It dramatically increases the anxiety you associate with speaking.
That's such a key insight for learners practicing with partners or tutors. You should ask them to save the corrections for the end.
Absolutely. And finally, the study identified the moments when anxiety is highest. The most stressful, high-stakes speaking events.
Like a presentation.
Exactly. The beginning of planned presentations, or when a learner is randomly selected for an on-the-spot speaking activity. Knowing these stress points allows you to proactively use coping mechanisms like deep breathing in the seconds before you have to speak.
This whole idea of getting stuck in a loop where anxiety causes failure, which causes more anxiety, is so common, and there's a great idiom in English for this.
The vicious circle.
Yes, it perfectly describes that feeling of being trapped.
I think we need to stop and unpack this idiom. Let's do vicious circle.
Let's.
In plain English, a vicious circle describes a harmful, destructive sequence of events where one problem causes a second problem, which then intensifies and makes the first problem even worse.
So it's not just a bad situation, it's a self-perpetuating negative feedback loop that's really hard to escape.
Right. The word vicious here means harmful or destructive.
I think everyone listening can identify with being trapped in one of these, whether it's with language or work or anything. It feels impossible to break free because the solution to one problem is blocked by the other problem.
That feeling of impossibility is why the idiom is so powerful. In our context, it's the language avoidance loop.
Explain that.
Anxiety leads to reduced practice. Reduced practice leads to your skills stagnating. Stagnation reinforces your low confidence.
And the low confidence causes more anxiety in real conversations.
Ugh. See, it just goes around and around. Let's look at 3 examples of how we use this idiom in different contexts.
Okay.
First, the formal usage, often related to economics or policy. The lack of investment funding created a vicious circle of outdated technology and low market competitiveness.
So they couldn't make money because their tech was bad, and they couldn't upgrade their tech because they weren't making money.
Exactly. Trapped. Next, a more casual example from daily life.
Right.
My phone battery life is stuck in a vicious circle. I use battery-intensive apps because I'm bored, and then I have to constantly charge it, which drains the battery faster long term.
I feel that one personally.
And finally, a funny, weird scenario that a lot of students can relate to. I was so tired from staying up late to study that I couldn't focus the next day, which meant I had to stay up late again to catch up, starting a vicious circle of permanent exhaustion.
The exhaustion circle is tragically real. I think I'm in it right now. Okay, let's try a quick scenario role play demonstrating this language anxiety loop we just detailed.
Okay, I can be Chris, a student who just failed an English speaking assignment.
All right. Chris, I saw you didn't sign up for the bait club this week. Why are you avoiding speaking practice?
Well, I just failed that oral presentation. I totally froze up and made all these terrible mistakes. Now I'm convinced I'm just bad at spontaneous speaking.
But Chris,
The anxiety about failing again is crippling me.
I get that. But if you avoid the debate club, you don't get any exposure to spontaneous conversation. If you don't practice, you won't build that automaticity and confidence you need.
So avoiding the problem is making my speaking skill worse.
Which means your anxiety will be even higher next time you're forced to speak.
Oh man, I'm trapped. My fear of making mistakes is creating a vicious circle where avoidance makes me worse, which confirms my fear, which makes the next attempt even harder.
So what do you need to do?
I need to deliberately break the vicious circle by practicing in a safe environment.
Perfect. You realize the problem isn't a lack of knowledge, but the mechanism of avoidance itself.
Exactly. To wrap up the idiom, let's just touch on the collocations. The main goal is often to break the vicious circle. We talk about being trapped in a vicious circle or needing to escape the vicious circle.
It always implies a strong, necessary action to stop the negative loop.
Right.
So the good news is that we know the enemy, anxiety that creates the self-defeating loop. But the solution you mentioned earlier isn't silence or avoidance.
No. It's using smart strategic hesitation.
And that's phase 3.
Right. When anxiety hits, learners tend to default to one of 2 unhelpful pauses.
Okay.
Either the complete long silent pause, which is a gap in the utterance, or the filled pause, which are those pure vocalizations like
And both of those signal difficulty, right?
They signal significant communicative difficulty. And that IELTS study we teased is key here. Tell us again. What do those Band 8 and 9 speakers do differently when they need time to think?
They systematically replace those pauses with functional language tools.
The study rigorously defined silent pauses, especially those lasting 3 seconds or more, as communicatively disturbing.
3 seconds is a long time in a conversation.
It's huge. In a fast-paced, spontaneous conversation, a 3-second silence risks you losing your turn because the listener assumes you're finished.
That's such a valuable insight. If you want to maintain control and sound fluent, long silences are deadly because they invite interruption.
They do.
But what about the filled pauses, the ums and ahs? I hear native speakers use those all the time.
You do. And they are marginally better than silence because they signal, I am still thinking. I haven't given up the floor.
Okay.
But the most effective tool, used by the most fluent speakers, are the small words or lexicalized hesitations. These are actual words, strategically inserted.
So we're talking about words like, well, kind of and controversially, like.
Exactly. They sound so much more polished than a long, drawn-out, hmm.
Hmm.
And you said they serve a pragmatic function. Can you explain what pragmatic means here?
Pragmatic refers to the practical, social, and functional use of language in a conversation beyond just the literal dictionary meaning of the words.
So these small words function as conversational steering wheels.
That's a great way to put it.
They signal a small, controlled delay, but they crucially ensure the speaker retains their turn. They also give the listener a real-time window into the speaker's thought process.
Okay, let's focus on the big three this study emphasized. Well, how does each one work?
Okay, take well. Researchers define it as a sophisticated delay device.
Mm-hmm.
You use it when you're not sure how to respond, or when your response might contradict what the other person expects. Starting with well softens the response and buys your brain a crucial half-second.
So if my boss asks, is the report ready to submit? And I need a moment. Instead of a silent pause, I say, well, the data analysis is complete, but I just need to format the charts.
Exactly. You claimed the floor instantly and managed the expectation. Next,
Okay.
this functions primarily to elaborate or clarify something you just said. It signals, wait, let me adjust or refine my thought.
So if I say, the meeting was awful, I could immediately follow that with, the content was fine, but the atmosphere was just so hostile.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's a self-correction tool that keeps the flow moving forward. And finally, this one has a dual function. It can be a simple hesitation to search for the next thought, or it can signal shared knowledge, checking if the listener is following you.
Like that movie ending was so confusing, the part with the purple hat.
Precisely.
Mm.
You're inviting the listener into your thought process. This is why these are superior to silent pauses. They add a layer of social connection while you're thinking.
Okay, so the study brought up this academic debate. Is a learner's reliance on long, silent pauses a deficit, meaning something is wrong, or just a difference?
And the research was clear. While silent pauses don't typically cause a complete communication breakdown,
Right.
they're overwhelmingly judged by native speakers as indicating lower proficiency. The source concluded that relying on them is a deficiency because these pauses are detrimental to your perceived fluency.
That word detrimental, it sounds so powerful. It suggests that silent pauses aren't just neutral, they are actively working against the learner's goal. Does it just mean bad?
It's stronger than that. And it's our third crucial word. We need to stop and unpack the weight of detrimental.
Okay.
Detrimental is a formal and strong word. In plain English, if something is detrimental, it is causing active harm or damage. It's negatively affecting a desired result.
So it doesn't just fail to help, it actively makes the situation worse.
That's it. So in the context of language, relying on long, silent pauses isn't a neutral hesitation. It's actively harming the impression you make.
It is detrimental to my confidence and my perceived fluency.
Absolutely. It damages the perception of your overall communication skill, which is often just as important as the skill itself. Let's look at 3 examples.
Okay.
First, the formal usage, often in performance reviews or strategy. The constant turnover of staff proved detrimental to the project's long-term success.
So the staff loss was an active cause of failure.
Right. Next, a more casual example related to health. Staying up late staring at your phone screen is detrimental to your sleep cycle.
It's actively damaging your rest.
Mm-hmm. And finally, a funny, relatable scenario. My attempts to fix the broken shelf myself were highly detrimental to the structural integrity of the entire cabinet.
I have definitely caused detrimental effects to household items myself. Okay, let's try a quick scenario role play about a work meeting where the pacing is crucial.
Sounds good. I am leading a crucial presentation, but every time I'm asked a question, I freeze with a long, silent pause before I answer.
Okay, the content of your presentation is fantastic, but those long, silent pauses when we ask follow-up questions, they're making the stakeholders nervous. We keep losing the thread of the discussion. The silence is highly detrimental to the credibility of your argument.
You're right. I need to claim the floor with, so that my momentary search for the correct data isn't perceived as a lack of confidence.
Because that perception is clearly detrimental to your professional image.
Got it.
Much better. You showed how using the small word keeps the perceived flow intact.
And to wrap up, let's remember the key collocations. We often discuss detrimental effects or a detrimental impact. If the damage is severe, you can say something is highly detrimental.
Okay, so we've replaced silence with small words. But what happens when the question is genuinely complex, or the situation is high stakes, like a negotiation, a quick, well, isn't enough time to organize a five-part answer?
And you've hit on the transition to phase 4. We need the advanced, sophisticated techniques that buy not just a half second, but a full 5 to 10 seconds of organizational time.
Okay, so moving past detrimental silent pauses and into the high-level strategies, what are the most powerful ways to think faster and sound smarter when things get complex?
The core principle here is actually distraction.
Distracting the listener.
No, distracting yourself away from your own fear.
Ah, okay. Strategy 1, focus on the message, not self. Tell us more about that coaching example.
This was a common case study. The student was paralyzed by self-focus. His inner monologue was all about performance anxiety. Am I saying this right? Is my accent terrible? I'm using the correct preposition.
That self-monitoring creates enormous cognitive drain.
Huge. The coach intervened and gave him a simple mandate. Forget how you sound. Focus 100% on what do I want the listener to understand right now.
So shifting from how well am I doing this, which
Yeah.
is a performance goal, to what is the key takeaway, which is a communication goal.
Exactly. That small shift lowered the fear factor immediately because his focus shifted from self-judgment to external purpose. The pressure to be perfect just vanished.
And his existing knowledge was finally able to surface.
He went from struggling to complete 2 sentences to having a fluid 5-minute nonstop conversation just by changing his focus.
That's incredible. It really shows that fluency is a mindset as much as it is a skill. So what's strategy 2?
Strategy 2 focuses on anticipation. You used the great analogy earlier of good communicators being like chess players.
Right.
A great communicator doesn't react to every move instantly. They anticipate several moves ahead. They predict the flow of the conversation.
And the formal technique for this, for professional settings, is the bucket method. We need to spend some time detailing this because it's so practical.
The bucket method is pure genius for managing spontaneous Q&A. It stops you from trying to memorize answers to specific questions, which is impossible.
Right.
Instead, you identify 4 to 6 categories or buckets that all possible questions could fall into. Then, you pre-prepare a simple, flexible framework for each bucket.
Okay, give us a clear example. Let's say I'm pitching a new fitness product to investors. What would my buckets be?
Excellent. If you're selling a fitness product, you can anticipate that investors will ask about 1. Market and opportunity.
Who's your target? How big is the market?
2. Features and specifications.
Yeah.
What does it do? How is it made? 3. Value and pricing.
How much does it cost? Why is it better?
And 4. Future development. What's next? What are the risks?
So when an investor asks a super specific question like, how do you plan to handle the supply chain disruption for the rare polymer required for the handle grip? I don't need a memorized answer.
Yeah.
I just have to quickly recognize that question falls into the features and specifications bucket and maybe the value and pricing bucket.
Precisely. You take a quick breath, use your small word. Well, that's an excellent point regarding our manufacturing process. And then you deploy the pre-prepared framework you have for that features bucket, tailoring the specifics to the polymer issue.
So the preparation isn't about the answer. It's about the framework used to organize the answer under pressure.
It reduces the cognitive load drastically. It moves the task from complex, spontaneous generation to simple, organized retrieval.
And this brings us to strategy 3, paraphrasing, the ultimate time buyer.
It's often listed as an essential communication tool and a lower-order cognitive skill.
I always thought paraphrasing was just repeating what someone said, but the source emphasized that it's about extracting the key essence. That sounds different. Can you clarify that?
It's arguably the most powerful technique for conversational control. I think we have to stop and unpack the concept of paraphrasing.
Let's do it.
In plain English, paraphrasing means restating the main idea of what someone said. But, and this is key, you have to use your own words, and usually fewer of them.
So the goal isn't exact replication. It's hitting the bottom line or the core meaning.
Exactly. And the crucial element here is the cognitive pause it allows you. You are confirming your understanding, you're validating the speaker, and you are simultaneously giving your brain a few seconds of organizational time.
It's multitasking for fluency.
Totally. It's a skill that requires just enough effort to sound professional, but not so much effort that it stops you from preparing your actual answer. You're buying a 3 to 5 seconds of high-quality thinking time.
Okay, give us some examples.
First, the formal usage, which is essential in professional settings. So, to paraphrase, the core constraint we face is related to resource allocation rather than timeline. Is that correct?
So you confirm a complex point and you manage expectations.
Right. Next, a more casual social example. Wait, let me paraphrase your crazy vacation story. You missed 3 flights, ended up in the wrong country, but still had a great time.
You distill a long, winding story down to its core emotional essence.
Yep. And finally, a funny scenario that shows clarifying intent. I think my toddler is trying to paraphrase his feelings about bedtime by dramatically throwing his favorite stuffed animal out of the crib.
The aggressive nonverbal paraphrasing, I know it well. Okay, let's try a realistic role play. I'm going to be a rambling boss in a high-stakes scenario.
Okay.
I need you to use paraphrasing to gain time and control the dialogue. Ready?
Ready.
Okay, so I'm really worried about the Q3 targets. We saw a dip in the APAC region last month, mostly because of the supplier issues we had in May, which forced us to pivot the strategy in Europe. And now that we're talking about restructuring the marketing team, I need to know, if we keep the current budget allocation, are we absolutely sure we can hit that 15% growth number by December, or should we just settle for 10%?
Okay, that's a comprehensive set of concerns covering several moving parts. If I understand correctly, you're asking for a final confirmation of our Q3 growth projection under the current budget, given the recent supplier instability and the proposed marketing restructuring. Is that the bottom line of your concern?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm asking.
By the time I finished restating all of that, I bought myself a solid 5 seconds.
And it was completely seamless and highly professional.
And I used that time to identify the 2 key frameworks I needed: the budget bucket and the risk assessment bucket, which gives me a starting point for my reply.
That is so smart.
And the functionality goes even deeper. The source material from that Stanford Business Communication program emphasized 5 benefits of paraphrasing.
Okay, what are they?
It validates the person, confirms the message, ensures the whole audience hears the question, buys you time, and lets you manage a long conversation.
And the secret weapon, the powerful application you mentioned, is strategic reframing.
This is mastery level. If someone asks a tough, potentially damaging question, you use the time bought by paraphrasing to pivot the topic to one you're better equipped to handle.
Okay, give me an example.
Suppose an interviewer asks, "Your product seems significantly more expensive than your competitors. Why is that?" You should avoid repeating the word expensive. That validates the negative assumption.
Ah, so how do I reframe that?
You acknowledge the premise but shift the focus. You might say, "That's a critical question regarding the long-term value of our product." Then you spend the next 2 minutes talking about superior materials, lower maintenance costs, and the extended warranty. You reframed expensive into value, which lets you argue on your stronger ground.
You answered the implied concern about cost, but you strategically shifted the frame from price to value. That's an incredibly powerful skill for high-stakes conversations.
It keeps the control in your hands, even when you're responding spontaneously. We've covered the theoretical framework: mindset, anxiety, practical tools.
And all of these strategies ultimately aim at one thing, right? Increasing your self-confidence.
Because when confidence goes up, the fear response goes down. The academic reviews gave us some concrete, actionable strategies for practice.
On the physical side, we mention relaxation techniques like deep breathing, especially right before a high-stakes speaking moment.
And mentally, it's about positive thinking, constantly reinforcing that fluent identity rather than indulging in the destructive self-criticism that leads to the vicious circle.
And on the practical side, they emphasize daily speaking practice and, critically, using authentic materials.
Let's spend a moment on the power of that authentic materials boost. The study involving working adults found that using things like YouTube, movies, or music was incredibly helpful for confidence. Why?
Because they show how language is used in real life, not just in a sterile textbook.
Exactly. Textbooks present idealized, polished grammar. Real life is messy. Native speakers pause, they use small words, they occasionally make mistakes. Exposure to authentic materials normalizes this messiness for the learner.
So seeing native speakers hesitate with Well, instead of a 2-second silence, confirms the research for you. It makes English feel like a communicative tool to own and explore, not an abstract subject to be perfectly mastered.
Exactly. This boosts motivation because it connects the classroom to tangible, entertaining, real-world content.
And let's not overlook the social aspect. The research strongly suggested that collaborative learning working in pairs or groups significantly reduces the fear of making mistakes.
That environment becomes inherently less judgmental and more focused on mutual assistance. It shifts the atmosphere from a performance test to a collaborative effort.
So if we can apply all these phases, adopt the fluent identity, break the vicious circle, use small words, and master paraphrasing, we can move from freezing to flowing.
That's the goal.
Okay, time for the common mistake segment. We've established that small words are key to sounding fluent. I know that, well, and you know, are excellent. But I also hear native speakers, especially younger ones, use like constantly. If I'm an intermediate learner, can I just use like at the beginning of every sentence to buy time? For example, can I say like, I went to the store and like, I bought some milk like yesterday?
That is a brilliant question because it's arguably the most recognizable and often overused lexicalized hesitation marker.
Right.
While it is definitely used by native speakers, your example demonstrates the common trap,
Yeah.
using it indiscriminately to replace all other forms of functional pause.
What makes the overuse of like so distracting, even if it is technically a small word?
When it's injected repeatedly into every part of a sentence, it starts to obscure the actual meaning of the message. It creates a rhythm that sounds highly hesitant and, frankly, unsure.
So it signals a lack of confidence.
It can. The Fluency study emphasized that the most advanced speakers use a variety of these hesitations. They deploy them strategically, not just defaulting to one. Overusing like can signal that the speaker hasn't internalized a more sophisticated range of delay devices.
So if our listeners are at B1 and want to start sounding more high level, what are the 3 superior, more natural alternatives to focus on instead of relying on like?
You should focus on those functional replacements, matching the word to the communicative task. First, for starting a new thought or responding to a complex question, use well or so.
Okay.
These are neutral and professional delay devices. They're great for taking the floor. So the first point I want to make is, well, that's a complex issue, but
Got it. What's number 2?
for elaborating, clarifying, or self-correcting a point, use I mean. This signals you are about to refine your previous message, showing precision. The meeting was stressful. The sheer volume of data we had to process made it challenging.
And number 3?
For signaling shared knowledge or checking the listener's context, use crease. This maintains the social connection. For example, we need to break that negative cycle, the vicious circle we talked about earlier.
That's a powerful differentiation. The takeaway is use like sparingly and rely on the functional power of, to manage your conversational flow.
Precisely.
Awesome.
All right, listener, it's time for the pop quiz we promised at the beginning of the deep dive. Let's see how much we managed to internalize.
My brain is ready. Bring on the questions.
Question 1. If a situation keeps making itself worse, where one problem causes another problem that intensifies the original anxiety causing mistakes, which causes more anxiety, it is a circle.
That's the self-perpetuating harmful loop we need to actively break. That is a vicious circle.
Correct. VICIOUS. Question 2. What advanced communication tool helps you confirm the message, keep control of the conversation, and critically, buys you precious thinking time to formulate a better answer?
That's the ultimate high-level time buyer, the lower-order cognitive skill we dedicated a whole section to. That is paraphrasing.
Precisely. And remember to restate the core essence in your own words. Question 3. The IELTS study stated that relying too much on long, silent pauses is actively harmful to your perceived fluency. If something causes active damage or negatively impacts your desired outcome, it is teshen.
That strong, formal word is detrimental.
Spot on. Highly detrimental. And question 4. When you practice a phrase, rule, or rhythm so often that you don't have to consciously think about it anymore, and it becomes an automatic part of your linguistic system, you have the rules.
You've made it automatic. I have internalized the rules.
4 for 4. Excellent work, and excellent work to all of our listeners who followed along.
Okay, let's summarize the 3 most important language concepts we need to start applying today. First, you must identify and consciously stop being trapped in that vicious circle of anxiety and avoidance.
Action, even imperfect action, breaks the cycle.
Second, realize that silent pauses are highly detrimental to your perceived fluency.
Replace those long silences immediately with intelligent small words like Well, I mean, or so.
And third, master the art of paraphrasing. It's the highest level communication skill for confirming understanding, strategically reframing tough questions, and buying yourself critical thinking time.
Now, for your micro challenge this week, it requires almost zero effort, but provides massive dividends.
Let's hear it.
The next 3 times you need a moment to think in English, whether you're alone or with a partner, stop using a silent pause. Instead, immediately use the small word well before you start your sentence. That's it. Just one strategically deployed word.
That one small, simple shift will make a profound difference in your perceived fluency and confidence immediately. Focus on the flow, not the perfection.
And before you go, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Global English Podcast.
We are committed to helping you stop freezing and start flowing. I'm Jordan. See you next time.
And I'm Taylor. Bye.